What's up everyone, welcome back to Fisher Hacks. Today's video is going to be all about deionization resin, also known as DI resin. And in this video we're going to talk about what DI resin is, how does DI resin work, why use it, how to use it, what type I use, and finally we're going to end with some tips on how to make it last longer. Alright, so let's get right into it. What is DI resin? And we're specifically talking about mixed bed resin. DI resin is made up of small beads that have a positive and negative charged ion attached to it. Negative charged ions are called anions, and positive charged ions are called cations. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, but that's what they're called. Alright, so how does DI resin work? Well, deionization removes the smallest impurities from water, called ions. Alright, so because ions have a negative or positive charge, they are attracted like a magnet to the opposite charged substance and removed from the water. Okay, so some of these some examples of charged substances are sodium, copper, phosphate, and silicate. Alright, so all those are examples of positive or negative charged ions, and it will get caught up in the mixed bed resin, leaving just the purified water to pass through into your container, whatever you choose to use for mixing salt or even your auto top off water. Okay, so before the DI resin you have filters such as sediment, carbon, the RO membrane. Those all physically remove large particles, so you need the DI resin to move the smaller ions that the mechanical filters cannot remove. Alright, so it's important to remove these substances like phosphates and silicate because those contribute to algae growth, and in excess amounts can contribute to algae growth. So it's important to keep fresh DI resin that hasn't been depleted at all times, and that will ensure that you remove those elements from water, giving your tank the purest water possible. Okay, so why use DI resin? Like I said, it gives you 99.9% pure water for your reef tank. Period. You're not going to get any purer than that. At least definitely not at your house, and that's where most people have the reef tanks at their house. So this is the best way possible to get the purest water. Okay. So can you run a tank without DI resin? Sure, you can, but like I said before, you're gonna increase your likelihood of having excess algae growth, unnecessary algae growth, and algae growth can impact coral health, not so much fish health, depending on the species, but the excess phosphates and nitrates and silicate, that will all feed nuisance algae, which then in turn will keep making the hobby even harder for you to maintain. It could affect coral growth, it could cover corals, which then kills zooxanthellae and blocks light from corals. There's so many things that algae can do to your reef tank, so just get the DI resin and eliminate that one factor and move on. Alright, so how to use DI resin? Well, simply you can buy a DI resin cartridge, which I'll have a link below off of eBay. It's about $8, and then you need your choice of DI resin. I use the bulk Reef supply resin, and I'll also throw that link in below. Alright, so you guys can just click on it and go get what you need to get. And then simply just connect the cartridge full of DI resin to the end of your RO system. Simply make it the last filter on the RO system. Now I currently use 2 DI resin cartridges. I just always been that way. I don't really have a specific reason. I just always use 2 DI resin cartridges. Alright, so what type do I use? Like I said, I use the bulk Reef supply color changing DI resin, simply just so I know when to change it. Now you can use just the standard DI resin and add a TDS meter before and after the DI resin. So when you start getting that TDS creep coming out of it, you'll be able to know when to change it. Alright, it's up to you. I just use the color changing. It's very simple. It turns like a pale brownish kind of color, other than the blue that when you get it. And then you just know to chuck it at that point and refill it. Alright, so some tips for making it last longer, or has been known to make it last longer. Using a flush valve on the RO membrane before and after using the system. Okay, so basically I run my flush valve about 5 to 10 minutes before using the RO system, and then once I'm done with the RO system I flush it for another 5 to 10 minutes just to clean off the particles off the membrane. You don't have to. They say it improves the DI resin lifespan, but I haven't noticed any significant difference in using the flush valve compared to not using it previously. It's up to you. It's not that much money. It's just one more thing you got to do. Alright, you can like I said, put the TDS meter before and after the DI resin cartridge, so you know what TDS is coming off the membrane and going into the cartridge, and then you know obviously 0 TDS is what you should be getting out of the DI resin cartridge. Now one thing that you can do is disconnect the DI resin every time once you're starting up the system for the first time. So basically just disconnect, you know, from the RO membrane to the DI resin, just disconnect that, let the TDS creep, basically flow off the membrane, and then once you get down to a lower TDS, like a normal range, like a, you know, between 5 to 15 TDS depending on your RO system, then connect the DI resin, because what you'll notice is once you first start the system up, even regardless if you're flushing it, you're going to get a TDS creep of like, you know, 50 to 60 to 70, and that just kind of depletes the DI resin quicker. So if you disconnect it previously and let it just drain off that excess water, and then reconnect it once it's at a lower TDS, you can extend the life of your resin that way. All right, just a little quick tip. That's what I do sometimes when I remember, but most of the time I just do it as it is, because you know you get a pound of DI resin for like 12 bucks, so it's really, and I can fill my cartridge 3 or 4 times with that, so it's really not a big deal for me. But if you're looking just to save it, go ahead and try that out. All right. Also, when you're packing the cartridge, tap it on the bottom. Once you're filling it, just tap it down to kind of settle the DI resin. Pack it as full as you can. This way the water, it flows evenly through the cartridge and depletes it evenly. If you don't fill it all the way, since most cartridges are you know, horizontal anyways on the RO system, you're basically going to deplete it at an angle if you don't fill the cartridge completely. So make sure you pack the cartridges completely, pack them down good, and then that way it gets used up evenly, so you're not wasting any of the DI resin. Alright guys, so I will show you a picture of my system here in a second, of the RO system with the 2 DI membranes on it. But other than that guys, that's it. That's DI resin. Like I said, I recommend you guys use it. It's one of those things, it's just one more step in preventing nuisance algae growth, and in this hobby, preventing nuisance algae at all costs is what you got to do, okay? Because all it takes is, if anybody's ever had a hair algae problem, you know that it's a shitty road to be on. So just get the DI resin if you don't already have it. Like I said, I'm putting the links below. I think it's like $8 for a cartridge, and like I said, the bulk resupply color changing is like 12, 13 bucks for that 1 pound or so, and it will fill that cartridge up 3 to 4 times. So you're definitely going to get your money's worth out of it, and you know, just one more step in helping you guys be successful. Alright, so if you liked the video, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe. If you do anything different with your RO system, let me know. Down the road, I'll get further into RO membranes and GAC filters and sediment filters and where to put things and how to do that. But I really wanted to get the DI resin out there because I had a couple questions about how I use it and what benefits I've seen from it. So I hope the video was helpful. If, like I said, if you have any questions, let me know, and I'll see you next time, guys. Later.